Okay, good morning, everybody who is able to join us today. We will be recording this session so that it can be shared to the rest of the group that wasn't able to make it. We are very excited to have Greg here representing JSTOR. He has worked with JSTOR for quite a while, but he's a kind of recent West Coaster. So he's up here around us. And I believe he also has a colleague with him to share more information. So I'm going to let them take it away. I will be taking notes and I will have all of that available to share out after the meeting. Thanks so much.
Hello, everyone. Yep, as Carly said, my name is Gregory Bodkin, and I'm the Consortium Relations Manager for USA and Canada for JSTOR. And again, as she said, I'm a native New Yorker, but I moved to Seattle in the fall of 2020 to be closer to my wife's family. And I'm joined here by Melissa. Melissa, I don't know if you want to introduce yourself.
Hi, everyone. So while Greg works with the consortia, I handle sort of the individual institutions on the West Coast. So we're sort of tag teaming on this one.
Right, and I'm assuming many of you have been in touch with Melissa over the years. I'm going to be sharing my screen here, but basically we're here to discuss some big changes we have for two-year schools that is coming up very soon. And the button here. Okay, can you all see my screen here?
Yes.
Perfect. Great. So the agenda is pretty simple. We're just kind of going to go over how JSTOR fees work for two-year schools now. What some of the benefits and the drawbacks to that were, and why we're changing it, how we're changing it, and what the new model looks like, and what the next steps are for you all individually. And then at the end of this, I can also share a spreadsheet that will show. I don't know if everyone see all your names, but I don't know what schools you're representing. But the model will work the same for brand new participants or for existing participants, but we could share what your fees would look like in the new model. So just to kind of go back in time, I know many of the schools in Washington State have been JSTOR participants for a long time, for going back to 20 years. But the original purpose of JSTOR, and this kind of gives some context for why it looks the way it looks today, but was for the purpose of freeing up library space, physical space in libraries. Our founder, Bill Bowen, who was the president of Princeton University, saw that a lot of, and he was also involved in the Carnegie Foundation, noticed that a lot of libraries were devoting huge amounts of their, huge proportions of their physical space in their libraries to the back files of journal articles, and even building extensions and spending a lot of money to house things off-site and things like that. So the technology was just in the place where one could conceive of digitizing that and putting it someplace to be accessed so that schools could remove the old print journals out of the library. The early on, the original project was to look at the most collected journals across colleges and universities in the US and Canada to maximize that shelf space savings potential. At the time, it was very revolutionary what we did, because we decided, instead of putting all that content onto CD-ROMs, which was the normal thing to do in 1995, we decided to put it on this new thing called the World Wide Web, or the internet. So we were one of the first places one could access content on the internet. And of course, the internet became a big thing, as we all know. And at some point, the benefit of JSTOR became more about the access than the safe space, the space savings. Over the last 25 years, we've grown both in the number of journals we are providing access to, the kinds of content. We have ebooks, primary source, images, and also the number of libraries around the world that are participating in JSTOR. JSTOR is a very trusted platform amongst users from secondary school all the way through grad school. Everything in JSTOR is peer-reviewed, and it's a trustworthy source. It's time here to emphasize too that we are a not-for-profit organization. Our goal is to maximize the impact. So to maximize the amount of content that's digitized and preserved, and also the amount that gets used by users around the world. We do have a responsibility to be a sustainable organization, to make sure that we're good stewards of the content, but we are not looking to maximize revenue or profit. So the current licensing model, which about half of the schools in Washington State currently participate in, is that we have many collections. We have specifically 15 arts and sciences collections and about 10 other discipline-specific collections, some of which overlap with these arts and sciences and some of which are made of unique content. One of the benefits of JSTOR, which you all probably know, is that we haven't raised our fees. So schools that license Arts and Sciences 1 in 1999 started off paying $1,500, and you are currently paying $1,500 for that same collection. Our business model in general has been to add new collections and license that content to institutions that are interested in that content. So each one of these collections has around 150 titles, give or take. Some are a little bit bigger, some are a little bit smaller. All the arts and sciences collections are multidisciplinary, but they might have a broader focus, like some are more focused on social sciences and some are more on humanities. This has a lot of benefits and downsides. It allows institutions to take a look at what's in each collection and choose the collections that work best for them. But the downside of that is that journals that they might want might be spread across many collections. So it might require licensing 4 or 5 collections to get everything that you think is necessary for your programs on campus. That's how it's been for 25 years. We launched I think we started actually selling JSTOR for charging people in 1997. So it's been 26 years of that model. March 2020, the pandemic hits North America. Institutions close and go remote only. We offer a expanded access program. So over 5,000 institutions around the world have signed up for this program, wherein they get access. If your institution licenses any one of our journal collections, you can opt into this program and get every journal collection on JSTOR. We made this an opt-in program because, and especially in the beginning, we thought it would only be a 4-month-long program, and then we extended it for another 6 months. We didn't realize how long the pandemic would drag on for, and what the impacts of it would be. So we extended this program many times, and we didn't want to auto opt-in schools, knowing how sensitive that can be for schools to offer content that then gets taken away. So around half the schools in Washington, so of the 17 schools eligible, so around half the schools in Washington State participate in at least one JSTOR journal collection. And then half of those have opted into this program. And generally speaking, across the country, when we look at schools that have opted into this program, it totaled for around half of their accesses of JSTOR, with some schools seeing very high percentages of their accesses. So if you had only one collection, all of a sudden, that would be like around 150 titles. All of a sudden, your institution would have around just under 3,000 titles available. So students doing searches in JSTOR on their campus would see a lot more content. I don't have the numbers here, but I also know that for the impacts of the pandemic have been very broad amongst institutions. Some saw their usage go up, some saw their usage go down, depending on their situation. But we did see for schools that were in this program, if their usage had gone down in, say, 2020 or 2021, we saw a faster recovery if they were in expanded access. And for schools whose usage went up, it went up higher if they were in this program. So it did have a positive impact on their overall usage, depending on how that worked out specifically, depended on the institution specific. So we've had this free access program going for 3 years now. It's scheduled to end in the end of June of this year. So I should say, and I can show you which schools are in it and which schools aren't when I show you the fees. You could still opt into it through the end of June if you're interested. But like I was saying, we saw clear evidence of usage across all of JSTOR content. So when we opened up everything got used. Another big reason why this is a time for us to change is that we already stopped adding new arts and sciences collections. Our arts and sciences 15 collection was launched in something like 2016 or 2017. Since then, we've added a few new discipline specific collections, and we had one more collection on deck right before the pandemic started, a public health collection, which became a part of this free access program. But during the pandemic, we didn't release it. We didn't think it was right to charge people for that specific content because it was related to the pandemic. And then as time went on, we didn't want to release it. We still held off, knowing that we had this free access model going on, and that we wanted to come up with a new model for institutions. During that time too, we decided that that would be the last collection of journal collection for the foreseeable future. Our main focus as an organization now is other services. We have a shared collections program, which allows institutions to share their special collections content onto the JSTOR platform. And we're planning on doing a lot of other programs like that. So we have a slight change in the focus of our in what we're developing on the platform. It was difficult coming up with a new model. We did this concurrently for 2-year colleges and for 4-year colleges. We didn't want to, we wanted to balance impacting our sustainability and our revenue with making sweeping changes for 2-year schools. So we did a lot of studying of what institutions are licensing, how they're licensing it, what their usage looks like. We compared the level of participation amongst 2-year colleges against what we've seen in the 4-year college market and secondary schools. Both in those communities, we've seen a lot of growth. And we realized that the model that we had for 2-year schools wasn't yielding the same results that our other communities models had. We took a look at what the average community college was paying today as a benchmark for where our fees should land. And we did lots of interviews with librarians and other members of the community to see what felt right for them. So our goal was to create a model that would increase usage, increase access, and and this is very important, easier for librarians to engage with. So that would require less time and effort to select collections and to manage those collections. So what we are what is going to be happening for everyone who's participating in JSTOR is that everyone will be migrating into one collection that will be available, and it will include all of our journal and primary source offerings. It will that specifically, that means all of our arts and sciences collections and all of our different discipline specific and thematic collections. So over 2,800 journals. It also includes our primary source. We have 4 primary source collections that contain over 1 million primary source objects. Every institution will migrate into this new model at the start of their next billing cycle. Most schools are on a January to December billing cycle. So you'll see this impact on your next invoice. This model will be available in both a recurring fee model, which is what most schools are currently paying JSTOR for, and it will also be available in our one-time payment model, which allows for institutions to pay a larger sum upfront and then not have to pay any annual fee to get the content. One thing that's going to be new for two-year colleges is that we are now going to be introducing tiers, which we never had before. It was always, we always just only ever had one tier of community colleges. We'll now have 3 FTE-based tiers. Carly was able to provide the FTEs that we're basing your fees off of. We are going to be looking, we don't want to do this every year, but maybe every 5 years, we will take a look at the FTEs and adjust your fees depending on any changes that might have had. Nationwide, 60% of participating institutions will see a fee decrease in this model. And I should note that this does not include JSTOR eBooks or ArtStore, which will still be available on the JSTOR platform for separate fees. And here is the new model. So if your FTE is greater than 10,000, your new fee for JSTOR will be an annual fee of $5,000. Or you can opt into the one-time payment method for $85,000. Again, that would be, there's no annual hosting fee or any other hidden fee. That's $85,000, and you have the same level of access to the content that you have in the recurring fee model. Most institutions are going to be medium, so FTE between 1,000 and 10,000. Your fees will be $2,600. Or you can opt for the one-time payment option for $44,200. And then small institutions less than 1,000 is $1,500 fee, $25,500. I don't think there are any smalls in this group. I think everyone is I could show, but I think we're mostly mediums with one large in the group. And just some, I'll show you the details in a little bit, but just to show the impact, currently there are 18 participating community colleges in Washington that license JSTOR for a total of 63 collections, and that costs $68,825. In the new model, the same schools will have access to the equivalent of 459 collections for $44,000. So it's going to be a much greater level of access that amount of content that you have access to for a lower price in general. There will be some schools that will see a fee increase, which I'll show when we show the spreadsheet. But most schools will be seeing a fee decrease. If theoretically all 33 schools were to license JSTOR, it would only cost 20% more than what the 18 schools are paying today. Just to put that into perspective. So it would be for how many more schools are would potentially get access for a lot more content, it would be a relatively modest increase. And like I said, yeah, there's one large institution and then there's 32 medium institutions. And I don't know what the percentages are across the country. I mean, obviously we do have many small community colleges in the United States and Canada, but most two-year schools do fall into that medium tier. And then, one thing to point out, once the migration happens, the new collection will be one target in discovery. You won't have to go through each collection in JSTOR to make it discoverable. It will be one button. So you can unclick all the collections you have today and then just click one button. And we do hope, we're not going to be adding new collections, and we don't have any specific plans to do this just yet, but having this new one collection, we do hope will allow us some flexibility to add single titles. Right now, if that's very difficult for us, we'd have to build a new collection around something. If there was one journal that wanted to become a part of JSTOR, we'd have to wait until there was a critical mass of similar journals to build a collection around. We now have the flexibility to add one journal to JSTOR, and that would be discoverable if you make that target in ALMA. I will now show the fees for institutions. So, and everyone can still see this. I don't know if I set my there's so many options for sharing my screen, but you can still see it. Okay.
Yeah.
And is it too small? Should I zoom in a little bit here?
Looks okay for me.
Okay, perfect. So this is a list of all the schools in the group, with the JSTOR participating institutions kind of sorted at the top. With the FTE that was provided by Carly, the more collections you have licensed today, the bigger your savings will be. There are 3 institutions that will see a fee increase, which are at the bottom of this list here. And I don't know if any of these institutions are online now, but we're happy to pull your usage, take a look at that. All 3 of you are in our expanded access program. So when you migrate into this, if you choose to migrate into this, your usage will continue as it is today. So we could take a look at your current usage to show the value of it. Licensing one collection today, it probably means that you have around 150 journals. Moving to this program, so it would be, if you look at it as a percentage, it does look like a very large increase, but you would be getting the equivalent of 26 new collections for that $1,000 or $1,100 increase. So it is an increase, but it is a huge amount of new content that you'd be getting access to. There's one school, Edmonds College, that sees a pretty modest increase. Most other schools are seeing a fee decrease, varying amounts, and that's related to how many collections you have today and what those collections are. Brand new to JSTOR institutions, of which there are many here. Every non-participating JSTOR institutions happens to be a medium institution. So before, when you were selecting, if you were interested in JSTOR, you had to go through the list, look at title lists, see which collections made the most sense. And we are hoping that this model is a lot more approachable, that you get a very wide range of content across a lot of different disciplines. It's going to be easier to manage on discovery, and easier to just talk to your users about as well, that you have everything in JSTOR. It's everyone in the group will have access to the same content. So if they're coming from other libraries, or if they're coming from another school in another state that had JSTOR, there's not differences in what they have access to. Everything's going to be a lot more streamlined and easier to approach. There's one school that's already licensed JSTOR. Every community college has already done the one-time payment method. So they're already in this new model. we started with the one-time payment model. I think around this time last year, is that right, Melissa, or maybe starting last summer. We didn't want to change anyone's annual access fees until the expanded access period was over. Which is what we're also doing for the higher ed, for the 4-year colleges and universities, who have kind of a different model that we're that we have worked out for them. But the amount of value that we're providing to, I think, is just is really just worth, the highlighting. Even the most highly collected school in the group is Olympic College with 7 collections, that's a lot of content, and even they are going to be seeing a huge increase in the amount of content that they have available through this program. So going back to my slide, I think I just have one more slide, which is just next steps. Just basically saying Melissa and I are happy to share your usage information. If you want to see what your usage has looked like over the last few years, especially if you're in expanded access. Expanded access is still something you can opt into. We can also send you information about how to opt into that. And for new institutions, if you want to learn more generally about JSTOR and see how the platform works and what the benefits are, and how it could fit in with your school, also definitely reach out to us and to get a quote. And I just wanted to, open the floor to some questions and see what everyone's feedback is, and if there's anything that we can help with here.
Greg, we had one question in the chat, and
Sure.
it was, when does the new pricing take effect?
So it takes into effect whenever your renewal happens. So and we can look that up for you specifically. Most schools, I think I said most schools are on a January to December billing cycle, and so you would have already paid your 2023 annual access fees. So when you get your 2024 renewal, which we usually send out in the fall sometime, that will be for the new fee. Any school that's on a July to June cycle will see it this coming July. So they'll see those new fees sooner.
Then we had one question from Abby, which we might need some clarification on. It says, my director asked me if we had to be a member. I think you mean the participating JSTOR institution.
We're not, we have ArtStore, but we aren't a participant JSTOR. So costs associated with becoming a participant that's beyond the annual 26. I think we're interested. So maybe this is an offline conversation, but that's a piece, if you can speak to, we'd like to know.
Yeah, it's like the fees for ArtStore and JSTOR are separate. So they're are you asking if you can get into the expanded access program if you just have ArtStore? So that's no, you have to license at least one JSTOR journal collection. But if we could do a trial or something like that, if you were interested in trialing JSTOR right now, and we could do a trial. And yeah, and definitely reach out to us. I have on the screen here our joint email address, participation@JSTOR. Participation@JSTOR.org, which everyone can, that'll come to me and Melissa, and we'll be able to respond to you.
We had a question from It said, will the change in number of collections also happen in the next renewal?
Yeah, and I think that's, Melissa, I don't know if that's like something, because the expanded access program ends June 30th. I'm assuming, I haven't heard the official word on this, but I'm assuming we're gonna be extending it.
For those institutions. I will triple check on that.
Yeah,
but
okay, yeah, true.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you might not officially migrate, like
Yeah.
your, when you license JSTOR, we set up like these account licenses on your account that show what you have access to currently. If you're in the expanded access program, you have, arts and sciences 1, arts and sciences 2, and then you have this, COVID-19 pandemic response collection, which gets you everything else. I think what will happen is that will continue to be the status quo until your renewal, and then you'll migrate into the new collection, but you'll have that same level of access if you've opted into the expanded access program. Through, it officially ends June 30th, but I think we don't want to take away access and then give it back. We want to make sure that that's continued all the way through. But I don't know exactly how it's going to work. If we're going to migrate you to the new collection July 1, even if your renewal's January 1, or if we're just going to extend the expanded access program. So it's in some ways it's a technical difference, but I think because in the end you'll be maintaining the that same level of access. It's just a matter of how we might go about doing it.
Yeah. And I think the next question sort of leans into this previous one. It's if 2,600 is the flat rate for medium-sized colleges, do we still need a quote? I think just like Greg said, we are sort of figuring out the migration process over it. So we may need just to sign a quote just so we have that documentation. But we're sort of tying together with our finance team to make sure it's all set for that July 30 date.
Right, and I'm not sure if Highline is a current participant or if they're a non-participating institution, but if you're a non-participant, to become a JSTOR participant, we would send you a license agreement and an official quote that you would sign off on. So at some point we would need to give you an official quote if you wanted to license JSTOR. Also, our official quotes will show your full annual fee no matter when in the year you're adding it. But if unless you tell us otherwise, we always default to a January to December billing cycle, which is why that's what most of you are on. And if you were to add JSTOR on July 1 and you wanted to be on the January to December billing cycle, we would prorate that fee. So we would also just want to be clear with what the prorate would be, depending on what your billing cycle was.
And then one more question from Amy. It says, this is the new pricing, whether or not the libraries in our consortium who don't currently have JSTOR choose to add it or not.
That's right. Yeah, we don't have so this is something that we have always, this has always kind of been our way of doing things, is that we don't offer a lot in the way of consortium savings. This is we wanted to maximize the fee reduction for everyone and not charge schools that were not associated with the consortium a higher fees, just so that we could offer consortium savings for the schools that were. We wanted to maximize the savings for everyone possible. That's not to say we could never introduce that, but currently we don't have a consortium savings model. And for some context, for the previously, when we did have a consortium savings model, was off of our one-time archive capital fee, which many of the participating institutions probably would have paid once at the very start of their JSTOR participation. Because that was a one-time fee, we did have some leeway in offering a savings off of that. But we've eliminated that. I forget when that was for two-year colleges, but I think it was at the start of the pandemic. Melissa, is that right? We eliminated that one-time fee.
Yeah.
So we don't have that fee anymore. We also, unlike other aggregators, we don't have annual increases in our collection. So that also is what allows some other vendors to offer savings, but we keep our fees flat. So we don't have as much of that. We're trying to balance, the offering you the lowest amount, the price available or possible, with also kind of maintaining our sustainability as an organization. And we that doesn't allow us a lot of wiggle room in terms of that.
Okay, so question,
Sure.
and it may not even be relevant, but it popped into my head. So if a school has done a one-time fee purchase of a couple of collections in the past, and now is, is moving into this new model, how is that going to kind of be accounted for if they're going to one-time fee or if they're going to subscription, or I'm sure there's a lot of billing complications there.
So I mean, unless the file I got from my finance team is wrong, which we could double check, but except for that one school, so except for Everett, which did the one-time fee model in the new collection, I don't think there are any other schools that have done one-time fees for individual collections in Washington State. But if there were, we would account for that. So this has come up with in another group that we talked to like a week ago, where they had a few schools that had done one-time purchases. And just so you could share what that looked like. So, for example, for arts and sciences one, you could have paid $25,500 for that collection to license the 150 some odd titles in that collection and not have to pay any annual access fee. We would, I don't know exactly, I don't have the calculation exactly right in my head, but we would recognize the annual access fee portion. So it would be some number close to 1,500 that we would reduce the new fee by. So if you were in that situation, you would have a lower fee for the annual access fee model, and potentially we would lower the fee if you wanted to opt into the one-time fee model. So we would definitely recognize that and make sure that what either you migrate into is fair, and that what you have paid for is accounted into your new annual access fee. But I don't think there are any schools, and I'll double and triple check, but my understanding is that there are no other schools in Washington that fall into that category. I did look. But we'll triple check.
And this is all 15 arts and sciences, and then what are the names of the other thematic disciplinary ones?
And this is maybe something I can share with everyone in a follow-up email, but so it's identical to what's in the expanded access program. Oh, Melissa put it in the chat, but I'll share here. So it is all the collections listed here. So arts and sciences 1 through 15, which are our main multidisciplinary journal collections, which are mostly social sciences and humanities with some math and science titles in there. Our business 4 collection, Hebrew journals, Ireland, Jewish studies, life sciences, and public health. Our lives of literature, security studies, sustainability. Those are the journal collections. So there's really only like a fine line of difference between what we have classified as an archive journal collection and the thematic collections. They're mostly the same. There's more current content, and by current content, I mean there's more journals with no moving wall, or with a 0 year. I think technically we say it's a 0 year moving wall in the thematic collections. And I should note too, we have business 4 here. We do have a business 1, 2, and 3 collections, but they are overlapping with arts and sciences 1 through 15. Many schools here might have our language and literature collection, which overlaps with the arts and sciences. So if you don't see a collection that you have licensed here, it's probably because it overlaps with other collections listed here. And then we have our 4 primary source collections, which are 19th century British pamphlets, World Heritage Sites Africa, Struggles for Freedom in Southern Africa, and global plans, most of which are available on the JSTOR platform, but global plans is on a separate platform. We've done a lot of work, there's a question from an ArtStore user. We've done a lot of work integrating the JSTOR platform and the ArtStore content. So images are now available on the JSTOR platform. And that's also allowed us for a better experience for these primary source collections on the JSTOR platform. We have a title list here and a KBART file. I'm pretty sure the expanded access collection is a target in discovery services. But the new collection will have a it'll be called the JSTOR Archive Journal and Primary Source Collection. And I'm pretty sure that's how it will appear in Alma or Ex Libris, or and it'll just include all this content.
We had one more question that says, will you be adding new titles in these collections, or are they static collections?
So these collections that I just listed have always been static collections. We would release Arts and Sciences 15 with 150 titles, and that would be it. It wouldn't happen that several years later we would add new titles to that collection. Moving wall moves up, so you get more issues, you get more volumes, but we wouldn't add entirely new titles to them. And like I said before, we don't have any specific plans to add new titles to this new bigger collection, but we could. That we have more freedom to add an individual title here or there that we didn't have before, when we had to build a whole collection in order to release something to the platform. So that's something that could happen in the future, but not to these kind of legacy collections. And at least for the foreseeable future, it will be the 2,800 some odd titles. Maybe further down the line, we'll have more individual titles join. And just to emphasize, the life sciences collection will be in there. Did we get all the questions in the chat? I think that's everything in the chat. Oh, there's something, all 3 Seattle colleges participate in voice and, sorry. Yeah, and I don't know if there's any change, I know schools merge and change, we go by Carnegie classification. So if you're 3 separate institutions in Carnegie, we typically want to treat you like 3 separate institutions in JSTOR. But if you're only 1 institution in Carnegie, and you used to be 2 or something like that, we can work with you individually on that. But we go off of how you're listed in Carnegie. So if you're 1 institution in Carnegie, you should be 1 institution in JSTOR.
And just confirming the last question in chat that came up is that the collections will continue to get the recent content from the journals that are included, it doesn't become static content, nothing new post 2023.
So however it's working today. So every journal has a different moving wall period. Some have a 0-year moving wall, the content gets released the same year. Some have, most typically have like a 3-year moving wall. In January of each year, we add an extra year of content to that journal. And that's going to be how it's going to continue. But nothing's changing in that regard. All the journals are going to continue adding new issues. For most journals, you still don't get the most recent couple years of content. But that's exactly how it is today. But that'll keep on, the moving walls will keep on moving up, just as they always have. If that answers the question.
Yes, I believe it does. And I have taken notes throughout this, and we'll be sharing those. Greg, you want to pop, and Melissa, you want to put your emails into chat?
Sure.
For folks? I saw that a few people had asked about that. And then I can put them in the notes as well.
Oh wait, I sent it as a direct message to Lauren. Hold on, sorry. To everyone. Sorry. Oh, no. Sorry, Lauren. And our, so you can email us directly, and that participation JSTOR.org will go to our joint inbox.
Well, this was very highly anticipated news. I know you've made a few people's day, and we'll give people things to think about. So I am going to go ahead and stop the recording. And if anyone has anything else they want to kind of wrap up